Well, I mean, it'd probably be helping my friends, providing income opportunities for my friends, honestly.
Yeah.
Be my and for my family.
Yeah.
I think about the daily struggle of the things that we do all day, every day, and my work, my businesses have given me an opportunity to provide a lifestyle for my kids
Mm-hmm.
and exposure and opportunities to new ideas and new thoughts. And I'm so grateful for that. So that would probably be my greatest rush. I also love it when a surgeon calls and asks a question that I can answer and they go, oh, okay. Yeah, no, that would work. That's a good idea.
This is The Chris Project, where we discuss mental wellness, self-awareness, and mindset with entrepreneurs and experts. Set your perceived ideas and biases aside, and let's go on our journey for yourself, for your family, for the world.
This is Christian Brim coming from the Dream Big Studios. I have with me Claire Thompson. Claire, give us the 2-minute rundown of your business. What do you do?
I have a couple different businesses. Advanced Surgical is a distribution business in the medical device space. We provide medical devices, equipment used in surgery, and disposables that are used in surgery. And we also provide service. We sell service contracts to hospitals and have technicians and salespeople that support those our various product lines.
Awesome. Tell me brief history of your entrepreneurial journey. When did you start? Well, how'd you get into it?
Yeah. So I think I was born into it. I definitely have always had the can do, will do, I'll figure it out as I go mentality. I resisted the word entrepreneur for many, many years.
Why?
Felt used car sales-ish to me.
Okay. A little pretentious, maybe?
Maybe, yeah, or a lot pretentious, maybe.
All right.
So
French. It sounds French.
It does sound French. Maybe that was the problem. Yeah. So I resisted it, but I knew that those traits, I knew that if ever I wanted to start a business, I could figure out a way to introduce people to people or people to things and provide value. So when I decided to leave a company that I was with and start my own business, kind of felt a little awkward at first, but I knew immediately when I started hiring people, I saw value in not just the products we were supplying to hospitals, but also the value it gave to my employees. And that felt good. And I think that is what I grew up hearing. I remember writing my dad's obituary. And one of the things that was important to me to include was that he provided income opportunities to a lot of independent agents across the United States. And I think that resonates with me too.
Okay. I love that. I think I don't know that you forget it, but it usually is secondary when most entrepreneurs think about the impact. They think about the impact on their customer and the marketplace, but not so much on their employees and their families. But definitely, it's part of the equation. Okay, so what study did you choose to discuss today?
Well, gosh, I found both very interesting. Probably the pleasure-pain pathway. I thought was a little more interesting. They both are. But as a mom, I don't think anything, trumps my children. So
yes, you noticed that all of the participants in that study were men.
Yes, I did pick up on that.
So no reason to do this
They
test.
didn't birth those children.
No. Okay, so summarizing that article, essentially it talked about the dopamine cycle in the brain, the addiction cycle. I clarified with Peesh after my last interview of what is an addiction. And clinically speaking, it's any behavior that's uncontrollable or destructive. All right. So, the dopamine cycle, all kinds of things give us dopamine. Some are good, some are not, some are agnostic. But the article goes into discussing how that cycle might affect entrepreneurs, specifically around being addicted to entrepreneurism. All right. So what jumped out for you in that article?
My first thought went to delusional. And, I think to start a business, you have to be somewhat delusional. You have to buy your own bullshit. Can I say that?
Yes, you did. You just did.
All right. So I think there have been times, certainly, that I have overlooked challenges, maybe ignored them, and believed so much in the idea or the value prop that I was willing to take the risk that maybe others that were more thoughtful might not have taken. I think that was where my mind immediately went.
Delusional. I love that. Yeah, I do. They like to call us visionaries, and some of us like to call ourselves visionaries, but I think the flip side of that coin is not based in reality.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Yes. I don't think anybody would start a business if they actually sat down and thought the downside.
I think back about when I started my business at the ripe age of 20. I wasn't even 27. I was 26. I had 2 young children, and I'm like trying to replicate that thought process in my brain, and it's not there. Like I don't see, I don't get it. So no, I think there's definitely a different mindset for most entrepreneurs that goes beyond rational behavior.
For sure. I think there must be something familial too. We must have
a genetic component.
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot.
I think you may be right. You come from a family of entrepreneurs.
I do. I'm the only one that's ever been employed.
Well.
And even extended, I mean, I think I can think of maybe 2 cousins that have been employed.
Right. Yeah.
Big family.
I think there is a definite family bias. Now, I don't know if that is genetic or if it's just you grow up in it and see it and it's a nurture thing. I think, definitely culture plays a role in that. You come from a Lebanese culture, so lots of entrepreneurs in that space. I'm a mutt. I don't know what cultural influences I might have had.
There's a great book called Thou Shalt Prosper that was written by a rabbi that discusses Jewish principles and how they play into financial success and business success. And being Lebanese, we just share a border, so
right
with Israel. So a lot of the cultural aspects are probably similar. And in my family, it was a lot about that, and a lot about providing opportunity for other people too.
Yes,
and providing for our families. And so if you could look at it from the aspect of that, you're doing this not just for your own good, but you're doing it for your family and your community and your employees. And boy, that feels a lot better.
Yeah, I think if all you ever chased was your own financial comfort, I think it's probably an empty chase.
Right. Okay,
so back to the study. Delusional, you said. How does that tie into addiction for you?
I think about my sugar addiction.
Okay.
It's easy for me to overlook it at times and realize that, not think about the health aspects of my sugar addiction.
Right.
And so I overlook that. So I kind of become delusional at times and convince myself that it's okay.
Okay.
Even though I know in my heart that it's not. So that's how I tied it together, I guess.
Well, that's interesting because I don't remember that. I don't know if the author did make that connection and I just missed it, but that is a very intriguing thought because I guess you could say entrepreneurs have an addictive personality.
Yes.
Usually compulsive, sometimes obsessive, but that extra I'm not living in reality component can definitely contribute to addiction. The author kind of talked about this idea that people could get addicted to entrepreneurism, like the process of it. Does that ring true for you?
Well, it must. I've owned 4 businesses, and so it must.
Only 4?
Exactly. I think ideas is what I'm addicted to, and then how to bring them to fruition. How to solve problems, and I think that's what I'm addicted to. I want to be a resource. I want to, I want to be a problem solver.
Yeah, and you can't turn that off.
No.
Like I hate it when I encounter anything and I'm like, this is stupid. We could fix this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's 24/7.
Yeah. And it's like, especially with my wife, when she wants to tell me about her situation, and I'm like, I'm on it. I already got and it's like, no, I don't want a solution. I just want you to listen, right? But you can't turn that part of your brain off.
You cannot.
You're just constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? So you talked about being addicted to ideas. Maybe so I think the thing that I struggled with the paper was I couldn't really tie in the dopamine addiction pathway to a lot of entrepreneurial things, right? So there are a lot of very uncomfortable things about being an entrepreneur, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the dopamine addiction cycle applies to any of those things. So like, I don't want to work 70 hours a week, but sometimes you got to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not pleasurable. It doesn't give me dopamine. It's not like getting hooked on sugar or heroin or whatever, right?
So the dopamine to me would be being a resource, providing a solution. It feels really good. Clearly I like to be needed. And
Yes.
so I think it feeds that for me. It feeds my need to be a resource, to be needed, to be to provide a solution.
So do you, again, this conversation is about layman's understanding of psychological or psychiatric studies. So we don't know the answers to these questions, but I'm going to ask you anyway, knowing full well that neither one of us know the answer to this. But do you feel like you get the same physical rush from sugar, say, as you being a resource? Someone calls you and you were able to answer their question and help them.
I think it's greater. I think, being a resource is a greater rush for me personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that in my experience like that. I know the dopamine cycle because we all eat, and that's a dopamine release, and it's not the same to me as the satisfactions that I've received as an entrepreneur. So I guess I would say that I don't know that the author was not an entrepreneur, but I'm just guessing he wasn't an entrepreneur in writing this.
That's probably right. Yes.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And so he's kind of like looking at these two pieces and saying, "Can you fit them together?" And I guess my answer would be, I don't really think so, unless it's, you've heard about serial entrepreneurs, people that just have to start a business and the rush of an excitement of something new.
Yeah, and the newness is definitely important to me. I think that for me, it's not about starting a business, it's about solving a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And, several times it's been a problem that I personally have had or my business has had, so I just figure out a way to solve that problem, and that creates a new opportunity.
Right.
So I think that is definitely true. But what just popped into my head as you were talking is kind of like a new relationship, or an old relationship. When you are needed or desired, or your partner comes to you and has a need that you can fix, there's a dopamine rush there too. It's very similar.
Okay, that's an interesting connection.
Yeah, wow. I'm
going to have to bring Steve in here and put him on the third microphone, see what he has to say about that.
I'm sure he would have thoughts.
Oh, I'm sure, and they would not be our thoughts.
No, they would not be.
No,
turns out,
no.
Yeah.
So, in your experience as an entrepreneur, how has this potentially this rush, addiction, whatever, and let's not say addiction, this feeling, this positive feeling, been detrimental, not worked in your favor?
Yeah. I think our working hours, I think I also feel like I need to do it all and fill a lot of roles that I probably don't need to fill anymore. But I get a rush from some of those. And so,
right.
So I'm addicted to showing up for those too.
Right.
So I think that's detrimental. You get stuck on an idea too that can be detrimental. One of the a movie that I loved, and it's called Flash of Genius with Greg Kinnear.
I haven't seen it.
It's like, I don't know, 2010-ish, maybe
Okay.
2000, maybe a little earlier. He was a professor, and he invented the intermittent windshield wiper.
Okay.
And then
Very critical piece of technology.
Totally.
Yes.
He watched his wife's blender, and that's what made him think, oh, wait a minute, there are different speeds on that. Anyway, so he mentioned it to somebody. He lived in Detroit.
Mhm.
So he mentioned it to somebody with one of the big 3 car manufacturers, and he says they took the idea from him.
Okay.
He spent years going through the court system, the legal system, and he lost his family because of it. But he was so focused on winning that battle,
Yes.
and proving that he wanted credit for it,
Yes.
for that design. He wanted financial credit, but he also wanted the world to know he was the one
Right.
that invented that. And so he was willing to take it all the way, I think, to the state Supreme Court, or maybe it was the U.S. Supreme Court. I don't remember, but he eventually, I don't want to ruin the movie for you, but
spoiler alert. Okay,
yes.
go ahead.
Yep. Okay. All right. So he did win the battle, but in the process, he lost all that time and resources, with his family, and wasn't able to support them financially during that period of time. And it was years.
Yeah. No, I can totally relate to that. Not really on not to that extreme in my personal experience, but definitely I can see where the passion, the obsession, the compulsion of the business can have negative effects on your other relationships, for sure. Absolutely. Where did this feeling give you greatest joy?
The dopamine feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Problem solving. That.
So, what was your greatest win in that?
An
regard?
example of it?
No. Like think back. What's like when you kind of replay that highlight reel and say, oh yeah, that one was a good one.
Well, I mean, it'd probably be helping my friends, providing income opportunities for my friends. Honestly,
Yeah.
And for my family. I think about the daily struggle of the things that we do all day, every day, and my work, my businesses have given me an opportunity to provide a lifestyle for my kids, and exposure and opportunities to new ideas and new thoughts. And I'm so grateful for that. So that would probably be my greatest rush. I also love it when a surgeon calls and asks a question that I can answer, and they go, oh, okay. Yeah, no, that would work. That's a good idea.
Yeah, so
that feels really good.
To clarify, the brain surgons call you,
yes,
right?
No, actually, yes, I do.
So it's not like brain surgery; it's higher than brain surgery, right? That's what level we're talking about.
It's a very slim slice,
narrow application.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears here and ask just some more general questions about this mental. I don't want to say like mental health, self-awareness, mindset. Tell us a little bit about that journey for you as an entrepreneur.
Well, for many years, there wasn't a lot of me time. So that's difficult. Every month I have to, figure out, okay, how am I going to make payroll, because that was always the priority in the beginning, for sure. And so, that's an added level of stress. And
yes.
I employ some of my closest friends.
Yes.
And so I worry about them a lot too. So that adds another complexity to my business. But I also trust them, and they've been with me for many years. So that's worked out well for me. So I think the pressure I apply to myself is great. And but I think I was taught, resilience seems to be a trait that's really needed in entrepreneurship. And that was something that we talked a lot about as a family growing up, and just, bootstrapping it. And so I definitely have that in me. So
so let me ask you a question. Did you ever reach a point where you realized that resilience was not working for you? Like that was not sufficient?
Well, when I ruminate over something that's not working, I have to stop myself and realize that why I'm doing this, and I'm doing it for a bigger picture and not just income, although it's been wonderful that way too. But I think that I have to remind myself, and I go back to that book that I mentioned. You're doing it for something greater than yourself and your personal income. You're doing it for other people and providing, a resource and real value to your customers, to your employees, to your community. And I think that helps me, grounds me back to, whatever I was worried about seems minute at that point.
Let me.
Not what you.
Yeah, I'm going to rephrase the question.
Please do.
Okay, so how are you different than when you started from a self-awareness standpoint?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm more confident. So starting another business would not scare me quite as much. Definitely gained confidence. I think I'm more aware of the value I can bring. I'm also acutely aware, more aware of the downside. So I wouldn't be quite as delusional probably in a new venture. Yeah. But I'd want to, spend more time with the CPA like you.
I was thinking I started my flight training to obtain my private pilot's license at age 52. And I remember after that very first flight, trying to decide whether I wanted to do it, kind of pausing and thinking, whereas in the younger me wouldn't have, because I knew how much work it was going to be. And I in the past, I would jump into things without really giving a lot of thought or even knowing like, oh shit, this is a lot more than I thought it was going to be. Right. And so I have that awareness now of being more, I don't know how to say cautious, but just really thinking through, is this what I want to do?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely true for me too. And now I realize the preparation it takes, and I actually try to prepare a little bit, where in the beginning, there was none of that.
Yeah.
It was figure it out as you go and fly by the seat of your pants.
Well, continuing the flying analogy, I remember about 3/4 of the way through my flight training, I was on a cross country by myself and hit turbulence. And I literally was saying to myself, get me the fuck off of this plane. Like, I want out. Right. And saying to myself, I'm going to get this down. I'm never going to fly again. And what happened? I couldn't quit. And even though I knew in that moment that I probably would not continue flying, I had to finish what I started, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's just mad, crazy behavior, right? Like, but the way it showed up for me in my business was I had been in charge of marketing in our company for several years, only by default because no one else knew how to do anything, and I knew just a little bit, right? And so, we tried third-party vendors and agencies and just really struggled with that. And it got to the point where I was like just super stressed because I couldn't figure that problem out. I couldn't figure the problem out, but I couldn't let it go. Right?
Right.
And it's like the ropes burning your skin, but you can't let go.
Been there.
And so it was like, no, I finally had enough of feeling that way. And I'm like, I don't know what the alternative is, but it's got to be better than this. Fortunately, I say fortunately, in that year, this is last year, we had the worst marketing performance I'd ever had. Like, we spent more money than we ever had and got less results from it. So it was kind of like God was saying, I have to beat you over the head to let go of this damn rope, right? But I was at a point was not only was I miserable, I was also like, it's not working, dude. I mean, you've got to let go. Have you had any similar experiences around your tenacity?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Mine have been, trying to manage the service side of our
Mm-hmm.
business as well as the marketing side.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't do it all. And
You can't?
No.
Shocking.
It turns
Okay.
out, no, I
There's
cannot.
just one of you.
I can climb Kilimanjaro, though.
Yes, you may. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. The trying to be in, several different markets simultaneously just doesn't really work. I thought about, is cloning a possibility? But
Teleportation, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But
So how did you handle it?
So hired more people, and I always cringe a little bit when I add fixed costs, but which technicians are.
Yeah.
But our salespeople, our marketing people are commission based, so
Right.
that it's easier to hire there than it is a fixed cost. But hired tech support people, technicians, and that's turned out to be another revenue stream that's actually going to benefit us.
The Chris Project is sponsored by the Rupp Group Coaching and Consulting. If you are interested in implementing some of these suggestions that you've been hearing about, or in general, you feel like there's parts of your mental game or actually your implementation strategy that you feel is lacking, and you love the opportunity to actually start to build yourself into the person that can create the success that you're looking for, please reach out vis-a-vis the link in the show notes to grab a free consultation with us to see if we can help elevate your mental or your business game. Thank you very much.
Why? Well, I'm going to assume something in this question, but why did it take you so long to get to that point to hire them?
Thought I could do it.
Okay. Even though the laws of physics say you can't be in two places at the same time.
True. I just thought there were enough hours in the day that I could do all of that and, get home and fry it up in the pan.
Going back to delusional.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah.
That tracks.
Yeah.
I get it.
Can see why I went there.
So, you were a member of Entrepreneurs Organization for several years. Were in my forum. Reflecting back on that, how did that experience, either forum or EO in general, affect your mindset, self-awareness, mental health, positive, negative, whatever?
Well, I guess misery loves company.
Yes.
Spending time with and sharing ideas and thoughts with other entrepreneurs, business owners who had similar issues, always is comforting. So I guess I would say that what EO brought to me was the camaraderie and of my forum. Mostly, I didn't, as you know, participate very well in the bigger picture, but I think that's really what it brought to me. And inspiring stories too. There were some inspiring stories that, kind of made me think, okay, what more could I do here?
I remember maintaining all confidentiality. I remember a couple of moments that you had specifically, and that I experienced where, someone's telling you their experience and their story, and you're like, huh. I had never really thought about that, right? You make this connection between their experience and yours, even though we're not talking about our problems, right? That to me was when it was really powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's invaluable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to elaborate on
that? Well, what comes to mind is a lot of the personal things that, that people would bring personal concerns to the table, and some of those were very relatable for me. Sometimes relationships, your significant relationship with your spouse or significant other in my world, and what they understand and don't understand about being an entrepreneur, and the pressures that we face.
Yes,
those were I went, I get that.
Yeah,
I have some of those.
Was there a time when it wasn't like, okay, yeah, you and I are sharing the same boat here. We're going through the same experience, but like, to use a really bad analogy, you saw how someone else was using the oar, and you said, "Oh, I hadn't thought about holding it here or trying that." Any insights like that?
That's a great question. Some of the I'd have to really think about that, but mostly using other people. Being willing to give up some of the control and sharing responsibilities, especially for people that I visit with, not just EO, but outside people that have partners. Because I haven't. Well, I have a partner in my insurance business, my brother, and leaning on them more. I think it was something that we talked about in EO and other places, and I thought I've got to really start working on that more and everybody really define roles better than I have in the past. Because
Right.
Yeah, I had no training.
Yeah, none of us did.
Running a business.
Yeah.
So kind of that EOS design,
Right.
would have been more helpful for me.
You're talking about entrepreneurial operating system, right? Okay, so you're talking about hiring people. I haven't been trained in hiring people.
Right.
I don't know a damn thing about it. I can think of a lot of mistakes I made over the years doing it wrong. But like you said, the entrepreneur doesn't have formal education that an MBA does, or all of these tactical things that go on in a business, marketing, finance, HR.
Yeah. Self-employment tax was one of the first things that, my first year in, I didn't know that I needed to be an S Corp.
Right.
And so, an attorney set it up for me, and we set it up as an LLC because that's what you do here.
How much did that cost you?
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
A significant amount of money. Yeah.
We're talking six figures or no?
Not six, but but high fives. Yeah. So,
painful.
Yeah, enough that it got my attention. We're an S Corp the next year.
Yes. Wise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the thing for me is that community aspect is, having, EO for me, but like every entrepreneur needs a community, because we're so few and far between. Like if you take your circle of everybody there aren't a lot of entrepreneurs, right? And as we've discussed in this brief conversation, we think differently, right? And you can't go and say those things to your spouse because they're probably not an entrepreneur. And if at best you're going to get a blank stare, at worst you're going to make them more anxious, right? Like, you can't talk to your employees.
Right.
Your friends in your social circles are like talking about Dancing with the Stars, and you're like, I
got nothing.
Yeah, I got nothing, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So how have you found an alternative community since you left EO?
Yes. Well, I have some very close friends who are mostly men, ironically, that some of them are business owners. One of my closest friends is, a serial entrepreneur, and he's like
Post Toasties, Frosted Flakes,
something along
Cocoa
those
Puffs.
lines.
Sorry.
He is, and he calls me his little sister, which is kind of, about how our
patronizing.
Yeah.
Oh,
no,
okay.
no, that's about. I think it's accurate, actually. Gives you a visual. He's great to bounce ideas off of, and Steve also is great. Steve has an MBA, and his friend group, a lot of those guys. So I surround myself with super smart people, and then the surgeons I work with, a lot of them actually are owners of businesses.
Yes.
Also. They don't really run them, but they are, they started hospitals and MRI centers and different things. So they've been a great resource too, throughout my journey. And then, so mostly those people, I talk to my brother a lot too.
Yes.
And I still keep up with you and with Matt Davis and a few people that are helpful also.
Yeah, I think thinking about the mental health aspect of it, I think one of the biggest challenges for me over the years is getting it out of my head. Just talking about it. That sounds squirrely, but I think you could go to a professional counselor, but they're not an entrepreneur.
No.
And they're going to look at you like, you're worried about what?
Right. It's so interesting. I have this very close, tight-knit group of friends that we're we're pledge sisters from OU, and they're 18 on a group text all day, every day. And when we gather, our conversations are so different because
Yes.
almost all of my conversations socially at work are all business related,
Right.
or personal issues. I don't really talk about Travis Kelce and
Right.
Taylor Swift.
Right.
That's just not
Right.
part of my everyday life. But boy, when I get together with that group of girls, it's amazing. One of them sent a video around the other day of Bosworth describing when Barry Switzer came and recruited him to his high school. And it's just so fun to get outside of the entrepreneurial mindset too, because I spend all my time there. And growing up, I did as well. It was just what our family dinners were all about: ideas and problem solving and business.
Yes. I wrote about that in my book about how, I similarly was in a family business, and the part about it I loved was that there was this connectedness that everybody had, and the time that everybody spent together. But the downside was that there was no line, there was no boundary.
Right, no boundaries.
It was just your personal problems follow you to work, and your work problems follow you home. And of course I was a kid, but you still pick up on it, and like you kind of understand that like it's a weird dynamic.
That's actually, I think, the greatest downside of being an entrepreneur is that there's no off switch ever.
Well, I think there isn't naturally. I think I've had to intentionally put those speed bumps in place. I just got back from Phoenix. I went to go visit my friend from one of my pledge brothers that was actually in my wedding, and he left Oklahoma City about 10 years ago. And I went out there and spent time with he and his wife and his 2 teenage daughters, and we played Phase 10 and Skip-Bo. And
how fun!
Yeah. And I mean, it was very refreshing. He's not an entrepreneur, but he's a business person. So we had things to talk about like that, but we didn't spend most of our time talking about that. We talked about family, and we talked about God and faith, and it was a different level conversation.
Yeah, how refreshing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it was intentional. And I'll be honest, the only reason I went was my wife was going to be out of town. And I was like, well, I don't want to sit at home by myself. So but I kind of made that decision that now whenever she's gone somewhere, I'm going somewhere just to, do something different.
I bet it filled your cup. I bet it was.
It really did.
Yeah.
It was 3 days, and it was, it was novel, which that also intrigues me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going new places and seeing new things and eating new things and talking to new people.
New conversations.
Yeah.
It's energizing.
So tell me about Kilimanjaro.
Oh my gosh. It was set out to, during 2020, I just started, I could not go into operating rooms. So I couldn't be the one in surgery all the time. So I just didn't know what to do with myself. So one day I went for a walk, and I came back, and I'd looked down, and I'd gone 10 miles, and I did it again the next day and the next day. So I was doing 10 miles a day, 5 days a week for months. And I decided to do the Grand Canyon with a friend who I also work with, and one of my dear friends. And we did the Grand Canyon in a day, the rim to rim, and that,
which is an awful name, but that's a different story. I need to rebrand that.
We do need rebranding on that one. Yeah. But it sure is a fun challenge.
Yes.
So I decided I needed more challenges.
Now,
like
how much elevation change on the Grand Canyon?
I think that, I'm not going to get this right, but the upside I think is like 5,500 maybe. Okay. But, you have to go down first before you can come up. So it's a very challenging route. We did North Kaibab Trail to Bright Angel Trail, and it was our GPS devices said 27 miles. We did 2 little side hikes, one to Ribbon Falls and another, and so it said 27 miles. Okay,
so let's contrast that. So you accomplished that, and now you say I got to do something else.
Yeah, so now I've got it in my, I got to go do these things now. Right. So I've got a list.
So Kilimanjaro
we did 6 weeks ago. And there were 4 women from Oklahoma, 16 of us total. And we did 5.5 days. We did the Mashme route, and it was 5.5 days up and a day and a half down.
So what elevation change was that?
5,500 to 19,341.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And how many miles?
Yeah. I have not added up the miles because you go up and down the way they acclimatize you. Like the first night we spent the night at 9,000 feet. And the second day, I think we went up to 13 or 14 and spent the night at 12. The next day we went up to 15 and spent the night at 13. So you're going up and down to acclimatize. And then the last night before the summit, which we got to that camp at 16,000 feet at 3 in the afternoon or 4, I don't know. And had dinner and visited, and then we went to bed about 8, and they got us up at 11 p.m., and we left to summit at midnight. And we summited before daybreak. We actually made really good time and summited before daybreak and did not have any problems breathing, but,
Nobody got altitude sickness?
There were a couple people. Well, yes. We all had some sort of issue, but nothing. Right. No, we all summited. We all.
And so your next hike?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be my next, but I've got several on the list. I read a book called Beneath the Scarlet Sky during COVID also, and I mapped out some of the escape routes for people that were leaving Italy trying to get to Switzerland during World War II.
Okay.
And there are huts that the Allied forces built in the Dolomites, and I kind of want to do that hut hike.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, pretty cool. And then Machu Picchu is high on the list, and the Rainbow Mountain, which is in Peru also. And then I want to do Mont Blanc.
Any chance Steve will go with you on any of these?
I'm trying to get him to. He is kind of interested. He has not read the book, but he is interested in the hut-to-hut hike.
Yeah.
And he did say the other day the Mont Blanc is interesting to him. He's not interested in Machu Picchu for some reason, but both my kids are.
Is he interested in putting in the training?
That's the big question mark. I did buy him a Peloton for Christmas. So I'm trying to encourage that a little more. So we'll see.
My brother Nathan, he went earlier last year.
Kilimanjaro?
No, last year. Yeah, it was last year. And he'd trained for many months and lost a lot of weight and was so excited, and he got altitude sickness and couldn't finish the summit.
Wow. Well, I wonder if he took Diamox. Do you happen to know?
I don't know.
Yeah, that is key to Kilimanjaro.
Well, I asked him, I said, well, don't they give you oxygen? He goes, yeah, you can get oxygen, but then they make you go down. You can't go any further up.
Right.
I'm like, well. And so he endured it for like a day, vomiting, diarrhea, headaches. And I'm like, no.
Yeah, no, that sounds miserable. There were like 3 people, maybe 4 on our trip that were not well. And none of them had taken Diamox, but the rest of us all had. So they started taking it then. I think we were 15,000 feet maybe, or a little higher then. But the minute as soon as they started taking it and it got in their system, they were fine.
I don't even know what is Diamox.
It deals with, I'm not exactly sure, but
we're not scientists here.
Yeah, we're not scientists. They use it in neurosurgery. They use it in ophthalmic surgery. It reduces the pressure, your intracranial pressure.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly how it works. So
okay.
Yeah, and it does work. But there are side effects. So you get tingling in your hands and your feet. And it comes on like kind of a sharp tingle, and it comes on and then goes away pretty quick for me anyway. But some other people had other issues. They thought maybe it made them nauseous, but I don't know. I didn't have that problem. Yeah.
Interesting.
I will take it if I go above 14,000 ever again.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, elevation's no joke.
Yeah.
People don't really, but I mean, anytime you go up into the mountains, you're going to go ski or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take very long to get short of breath.
No, it does not. But I do think a lot of that, though, plays into that psychological, the dopamine rush. I liked I like challenges.
Sure.
And I like overcoming the challenge. And
sure.
So I think this plays a role. I took the kids and ran with the bulls in 2016 in Pamplona, Spain. But I take calculated risks. I go in and I look down, and so I might not be as delusional as I once was. We rented a balcony at the Running with the Bulls one year, and we watched to see how you can do it without having real risk. And so we did it that way. We can still say we ran with the bulls, but
how close was the bull?
The bull was not close until we got into the arena.
Okay.
And then my boys were close to the bull in the arena, probably 10, 15 feet away from the bull in the arena.
Well, they've got too much testosterone, so they don't they don't know any better.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Any other thoughts on this topic, either the study or mental health, mindset, self-awareness in general?
Yeah. I think I read a great quote about shame the other day, and I think when things don't go exactly like we've convinced ourselves they might, it can be really upsetting. We can feel shame, especially if you have to let employees go or downsize, or there's a lot of shame involved in that. And I think talking about it, having a group that you can share those thoughts and feelings with, is super important.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's I think, and this just makes sense, that because there are so few of us in the population and we don't always do a good job of connecting with each other, it can be very lonely being an entrepreneur, and just being able to express those thoughts and those feelings and have someone say, yeah, I totally understand. I mean, when someone passes away, you've got everybody, friends and family that you can talk to about your grief, but that's not always the case with entrepreneurs and the intense emotions that they have.
Absolutely.
Shame, fear, anxiety, dread,
Right.
Yeah.
And mixed emotions about happy times too. I mean, it's fascinating how
guilt,
guilt. Yes.
A lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. Like, I'm making too much money.
Right.
I shouldn't.
Right.
I don't deserve this.
That's challenging.
Yeah.
Yes. And you don't have anybody you can talk to about that. Yeah.
No, because I feel really bad that I made this much money and I had to go on this trip or buy this car. I feel awful. That no one wants to hear that.
It's interesting how many entrepreneurs downplay.
Yes, and then the few that overplay.
There's a lot of that too.
Yeah, I think I said this before. I think one of the biggest challenges for me as an entrepreneur is I never really quantified success financially. And that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother story as why. But the problem with it is if you don't quantify it, like put a number to it, you never reach it. And therefore you're never satisfied with what you've done.
Right.
And as entrepreneurs, there's always someone that is making more money, has a bigger company, has more employees, growing faster, whatever. And it can really set you up in a bad headspace if you're like you're always comparing yourself to somebody else because you don't have a real clear idea of what success looks like to you.
Right. I did start early on trying to figure out what my need would be, my exit strategy need.
Yes.
And so I've kind of had, some numbers in my
Right.
mind. They've evolved, but that's been something I've focused on for a long time. And now that I'm 55 now, and I'm thinking, okay, what's the next act? Because I cannot sit still.
Yes.
So, at some point in the future, I'm going to want to exit this business.
Yes.
Advanced Surgical, not the insurance business, but and when that happens, I've wondered, what does it look like next?
Yeah, and I was just introduced to a book yesterday. I have not read it. It's called The Second Mountain. And it's essentially like the first mountain in our lives is the worldly one, the professional, the financial, the whatever that is. But then after we've either succeeded or failed at climbing that mountain, there's this second mountain that's more altruistic, more meaningful.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think that's one of the beautiful things is that if you're successful as an entrepreneur and you do it the right way, you can have that to give you the capacity to go to the next mountain, right?
Yeah.
To say, okay, I can start with a blank slate and what do I really want? What do I really want to do? Because I don't have to make the money.
Right.
I don't need the accolades. I don't need the self-esteem.
Right.
What do I want to do?
Yeah. Yeah. We're lucky.
Yes.
And we took the risk that got us here.
Yes.
So I'm grateful for that. Yeah. Yeah. So I think, right now it's hiking for me. And hopefully at some point in the future, it'll be grandchildren and,
Oh, that'll be here before you know it.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
Sorry, boys.
Yeah, they're not going to listen to this.
Thank you for listening to The Chris Project. You are important. Your work is important. Do not give up.